Welcome, brave soul, I am the forgotten storyteller. Before we begin, tap that like button if you dare, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from. And if you make it to the end of this video, I hope to see you in the next story. I hope you're ready, because I am. Let's begin. The clock on the dashboard of the lonely patrol car blinked 3:32 a.m. Officer Miller sighed, the hum of the engine a monotonous drone in the otherwise silent city. He'd been pulling the graveyard shift for 3 years now, and the novelty had long worn off. All that was left was the bone-deep weariness and the occasional domestic dispute. He idly scrolled through his phone, the bright screen a stark contrast to the darkness outside. 3:33 a.m. He'd heard the whispers, the local legends spun around hushed tones in the precinct break room. The 3:33 bus. A spectral vehicle said to roam the city during the so-called Devil's Hour, a time when the line between reality and something other blurred. Miller scoffed. Superstition. Folktales for the easily spooked. He was a man of logic, a man of law. Ghosts and haunted buses held no sway over him. Then he saw it. In the distance, down Elm Street, a faint glow emerged. Headlights, dim and wavering, appeared, growing larger as they approached. It was a bus, an old city transit bus, the kind they'd phased out years ago. But there was something undeniably off about it. The lights were too dim, almost sepulchral, casting long, distorted shadows that danced across the empty street. As it drew closer, Miller could see it. There was no driver. The driver's seat was empty. His hand instinctively tightened on the steering wheel. He should pull it over, run the plates, maybe call it in. But something held him back. An icy tendril of unease snaked around his spine, whispering primal warnings. The bus trundled past, a creaking, groaning behemoth of metal and glass. He caught a glimpse inside. Passengers. Figures sat motionless, their faces obscured by shadows. All except one. A woman, seated near the window, stared directly at him. Her face was pale, almost translucent in the dim light, and her eyes were wide and filled with an unbearable sadness, a desperate plea. They locked onto Miller's for a fleeting moment before the bus continued on its silent journey, disappearing around the corner and into the darkness. Miller sat frozen, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He knew with a chilling certainty that he had just seen the 3:33 bus. He shook his head, trying to rationalize what he had witnessed. Must be a private charter, he reasoned. A malfunction with the lights. He'd imagined the rest, the empty driver's seat, the pallid faces, the desperation in the woman's eyes. But the image of that woman, her haunting gaze, remained seared onto his retinas. He decided to follow it. He threw the car into gear and tore around the corner, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He sped down the street, scanning the horizon for the telltale glow of the bus's lights. But it was gone. Vanished. He pulled to the side of the road, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The city was silent again, the only sound the gentle hum of his patrol car. He spent the rest of the shift patrolling, his eyes constantly scanning the streets, searching for any sign of the ghostly bus. Nothing. The next night, Miller found himself parking at the same spot on Elm Street, the memory of the previous night still fresh in his mind. He told himself he was just being vigilant, ensuring the safety of the city. But deep down, he knew he was waiting for the 3:33 bus. 3:32 a.m. He checked his watch. His palms were sweating. 3:33 a.m. And there it was. Just as before, the dim lights appeared down the street, growing larger as the bus approached. The same creaking, groaning sound filled the air. This time he was ready. He wasn't going to let it just disappear. He pulled out into the street, flashing his headlights, signaling the bus to stop. But it didn't. It just kept coming, a silent, unstoppable force. Miller swerved to the side, narrowly avoiding a collision. He watched, stunned and horrified, as the bus continued on its path, oblivious to his presence. He pursued it again, but the bus seemed to anticipate his every move, always just out of reach. It was like chasing a phantom, a fleeting illusion. Finally, it turned onto an unfamiliar street, a narrow lane he hadn't noticed before. It was poorly lit, lined with dilapidated buildings that seemed to lean in on each other, casting long, ominous shadows. He hesitated. This felt wrong. But the need to understand, to find answers, outweighed his apprehension. He followed the bus down the narrow street. It stopped in front of an old, abandoned bus depot, the gates rusted and overgrown with weeds. Miller watched as the passengers, one by one, began to disembark. They moved with a strange, unnatural stillness, their faces still obscured by shadow. Then the woman. She emerged from the bus, her pale face illuminated by the faint streetlight. Her eyes found Miller's, and this time he saw something more than just sadness and desperation. He saw recognition. She slowly walked towards him, her footsteps silent on the cracked pavement. Miller got out of his car, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. But he couldn't bring himself to draw it. He was facing something beyond the scope of law enforcement. "You see us," she said, her voice a low, ethereal whisper. "Who are you?" Miller asked, his voice barely audible. "We are the lost," she replied. "The forgotten. The passengers on this bus are those who died tragically, unexpectedly, in this city. They are trapped, reliving their final moments over and over again." "And you?" "I am their guide," she said. "I help them find peace, but it is a slow, difficult process. Most are too consumed by their own grief and confusion to even recognize me." "Why are you showing me this?" Miller asked. "Because you are different," she said. "You have the ability to see us, to understand. You can help us." "Help you how?" "By remembering them," she said. "By acknowledging their existence, by telling their stories. They are fading, their memories dissolving into nothingness. If they are forgotten completely, they will cease to exist." She reached out a hand, her touch sending a chill down his spine. "Please," she said. "Help us remember." Then she turned and walked back towards the bus depot, disappearing into the shadows. The other passengers followed, their silent figures dissolving into the darkness. The bus stood alone, its dim lights flickering like dying embers. Then, with a final groan, it vanished, leaving Miller standing alone in the silent street. He stood there for a long time, trying to process what he had just witnessed. He was a man of logic, a man of law. But he couldn't deny what he had seen, what he had felt. He knew he had a responsibility. He returned to the precinct the next morning, his mind racing. He couldn't tell anyone about the 333 bus. They'd think he was crazy. But he could research unsolved cases, missing persons reports, tragic accidents. He could try to piece together the stories of the lost souls he had seen on the bus. He started with the woman. He spent hours poring over old newspaper archives, searching for a face that matched her pale features, her haunted eyes. Finally he found it. An article about a woman named Eleanor Vance, a young schoolteacher who had been killed in a hit-and-run accident near the bus depot 50 years ago. The police had never found the driver. He continued his research, spending his days off in the library, sifting through old records, interviewing elderly residents, piecing together the stories of the other passengers. A young soldier returning from the war, killed in a robbery gone wrong. A factory worker who died in a tragic industrial accident. A family who perished in a house fire. He wrote down their names, their stories, their hopes and dreams. He visited their graves, leaving flowers and small tokens of remembrance. He told their stories to anyone who would listen. He spoke at local historical societies, he wrote articles for the local newspaper, he even started a blog dedicated to the forgotten souls of the city. Slowly things began to change. People started to remember. They shared their own memories of the lost, adding to the collective narrative. The city began to acknowledge its past, to honor those who had been forgotten. Miller continued to see the 333 bus, but it was different now. The passengers seemed less lost, less desperate. Eleanor Vance, the woman he had spoken to, smiled at him, a genuine smile of gratitude. He knew that their journey was not over, but they were no longer alone. They had been remembered. One night, as he patrolled Elm Street, the clock on his dashboard blinked 3:33 a.m. He saw the faint glow of the bus lights in the distance. He didn't stop it this time. He simply watched as it passed, a silent monument to the lost souls of the city. He knew that as long as someone remembered, they would never truly disappear. And he would keep remembering for as long as he lived. The next night, Officer Miller found himself driving with a peaceful tension in the air, anticipation softened by purpose. The clock on his dashboard blinked 3:32 a.m. again, and though his body had grown accustomed to the stillness of graveyard shifts, tonight felt different, lighter. The bus appeared on the horizon exactly at 3:33, its dim headlights wandering along the pavement like flickers of a distant candle. Miller felt no dread this time. Instead came something like hope. He did not follow it, did not flash his lights or chase it down the avenue. He slowed and parked at a respectful distance. Behind the fogged glass, the familiar figures sat quietly. Eleanor Vance's face looked up and met his through the window. A soft, grateful smile touched her translucent lips. He saw the other faces too, each seeming softer, less haunted and at peace. As the bus rolled past him, a gentle wind rustled the fallen leaves along the curb, like applause for a life finally recognized. Miller watched until it disappeared around the corner, into the folds of the night. In the months that followed, the rhythm of his life shifted. He kept patrolling, continued researching, continued leaving flowers at quiet graves. On nights when the clock blinked 3:33, he listened for a distant hum, a soft groan of ancient metal. Every time the bus appeared, he offered it a silent nod of remembrance. He never saw Eleanor again. But sometimes in the hush just before dawn, Miller smelled faintly the scent of chalk and wildflowers, her favorite perfume from another era. He smiled then, closed his eyes for a moment, and whispered into the silent patrol car, "We remember." And the city, now softly aware, whispered back in leaves, in dusk-lit streets, and perhaps, if you listen at 3:33, you will too hear the distant hum of the bus. Let us know in the comments section, would you have followed the bus?
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.